Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining UAC this evening for another live webinar. Tonight, we're going to be talking about entry for university. If you are someone who's finished high school and maybe you've never been to university, maybe you've been to uni once and you're looking at returning to study, and all information about qualifications, how to apply, and lots of other information about just uni in general, costs, and things like that. So we'll get into the presentation. If you're wondering who UAC is, that is a fair question because lots of people don't experience us more than once in their lifetime. The letters UAC stands for the University's Admission Centre, and we are a organisation that processes university applications for around 30 different institutions, so universities or colleges located within the state of New South Wales and also the Australian Capital Territory, so Canberra as well. We're essentially the middleman between you, the person applying to university, and the university itself. And what we do is all the checking on behalf of universities. We also have access schemes, and these are programs designed to assist students in gaining entry into university. We'll talk about those a little later on in the presentation. And we're probably most well known for the fact that we calculate the ATAR result for all New South Wales HSC students. So a little bit less relevant for tonight's presentation, whether you have an ATAR or not. We'll be talking about other qualifications that can be assessed for university entry. So, if you are someone that's thinking you might like to go back to uni or start uni sort of later in life, you've sort of been working or taken some time off from study and you're now looking at getting a new qualification, these are the things that we suggest you do to do a little bit of research around getting your application ready to submit. So you could go to university open days, and in Sydney, we're actually coming up to, in the next couple of weekends' time, lots of different university open days where you can go on campus, explore the buildings, facilities, talk to the teaching staff, so tutors and lecturers, about the different degrees that they have on offer at that university and see if you can envision yourself as a student at that place. It's a really good way of sort of trying before you buy a degree and sort of feeling out if the atmosphere is meeting your expectations. At a minimum, you should definitely be investigating the university's website and looking at the course structure of the degree that you're hoping to study, because in the course structure, a lot of the times that specific document will be referred to as the course handbook on a specific university's website. That's going to outline all the different units of study or subjects that you'll need to complete to obtain that degree. So if you're thinking, I want to study a Bachelor of Arts, but I'm not sure what people do in a Bachelor of Arts, that sort of document will give you a lot more finer grained detail without you even needing to leave your house. Um, as a part of your investigation, we also recommend that you do a little bit of investigation of, your plan B or backup plan. So if in the case that you don't gain entry into your dream course straight off the bat, what is a pathway that could get you there further down the track? So lots of specific degrees, whether it's engineering or nursing, have their own specialized pathways. These are known as diploma courses. And perhaps you could look at taking on the diploma as an entry into the bachelor's once you've completed that diploma. A lot of universities have their own specialized future students teams that are trained in taking these inquiries, and you can call them, maybe chat with them online, send an email, and they'll be able to give you a lot more catered advice around what your goals are and how they're pathways could get you there. Another thing that you definitely should be doing is checking that you meet the entry requirements to be eligible to be assessed for entry. So, making sure that you do meet the minimum sort of requirements for assessment of your qualifications. So, if you are someone that hasn't obtained a year 12 qualification in Australia, that isn't necessarily a limitation. However, you will need to provide some other qualification so we can assess you. A lot of the time, there's a bit of a myth out there that as soon as you turn 21 and are considered a mature age student, that you'll get entry into a university in Australia as a mature age student without needing to provide any information about your qualifications, but that's not necessarily true anymore. I think maybe it might have been something way back in the past that was done, but now in 2024, you will need to provide some evidence of your former learning, and that can be from TAFE or a private training provider or something like that. But you'll need to have some evidence of what you've done in the past so the university can assess your suitability for their degrees or courses, as we call them. So, a lot of the time, this will be you sort of thinking about what your goals are and working out sort of a checklist of things to consider. And this is the questions that we suggest you have on your sort of things to think about, things to check when you're considering university entry. I'm just going to check. Oh, we're all good. Sorry, I thought there was an issue with our sound. So, if you're not sure where to start in this process or what you should be thinking about, um, you'll see some of these questions on the screen. We suggest that you think about what is it that you want to do in terms of a career or a qualification? What is the name of that occupation or that field or sector? And then sort of researching if there is a university qualification that matches those requirements, because there are lots of degrees out there. They all have varying names. So it's best to sort of figure out what is best suited to your needs so you don't end up studying something that maybe is a little bit hit and miss for your outcome. Then, of those degrees that you might be interested in, which universities actually offer them, and if they're close by to you, if you can access them easily on public transport, if you're going to be traveling by car, if there's, available parking, lots of things like that that will impact your everyday experience at that place. Also, if there's anything additional to sort of proving that you meet the minimum qualifications for entry, have you done that additional thing? If you haven't, how much effort and time would that require for you to do it and then actually be assessed for entry? Um, and like I said earlier, if you think you might not be very competitive because maybe you haven't met the additional entry criteria, then what is your next plan B sort of option? And like we also already mentioned, it's a good idea to have an open mind about what is something that could be a pathway to lead you to that final dream course after some additional study at a university, whether it's in a college, in a preparation course, or a pathway course leading up to entry into a bachelor's. Okay, so then we're going to move on to what sort of options are offered at university. I'm going to assume that a lot of people watching tonight might be people that already work, whether it's part time or full time. So when you're juggling study with a career or a job and commitments in terms of like bills, there's a lot of other factors that come into play, and you've got a bit more responsibility. So, these are the other things that we suggest you think about when it comes to balancing your life in terms of work and study. And probably a lot of you might have already thought of these sort of things, but maybe haven't. So these are things that sort of pop up as common barriers to returning to study and things to think about how you're going to approach it. It is really largely dependent on the university that you do end up attending. Some are very, really like good at facilitating your study mode, flexible options, and others might not be as flexible. So I guess this is things that you can factor into your research. So, if the course or the degree is offered on a part time basis or a full time basis, or if you can do both with undergraduate courses, so that's bachelor's or undergraduate certificates, diplomas, things of those rankings. They are usually you're allowed to like mix your study loads. So you might be able to do one semester or a trimester as a part time student and just do half the amount of subjects. And then you can beef it up the next semester or trimester once you're a bit more comfortable, knowing that you're confident enough to be able to manage the work and go to a full time study load. But other universities, you might sort of have to declare in advance how many subjects you're taking. It might be a bit less flexible how in the admin system side of things you go about it. So that's sort of something you might need to think about ahead of time, which can be a little bit inconvenient, especially if you're somebody that might work seasonally or casually. Like, how can you sort of commit to a certain level of work/study if you don't know what that's going to look like 6 months in advance? But unfortunately, university timetables do sort of get planned very far in advance. So that might be something you might need to think about as well. If you're doing postgrad studies, it can be really course dependent as well, whether you can sort of chop and change the amount of subjects you're doing. It might be up to the faculty to sort of allow you to drop down to part time study if you originally started out in full time study. So just sort of ask those questions, I guess, before you've committed to doing X amount of subjects so you don't run into any headaches further down the track. Um, Another thing that lots of people, especially if you're a bit more busier than your average 17-year-old finishing high school is if the course or the degree is delivered online or if it has a mixed mode of delivery, which means that you might be able to take some of your tutorials or lectures online and then only do part of it on campus. I mean, there was probably a few more options in 2020, 2021 when COVID was a bit more of an issue for the world. But you definitely should be checking that online is a mode of delivery and it's actually written on the course's information on the university's website or the UAC website, because if it's not stated there, it probably won't be offered as an online course, which means you will be expected by that university to attend in person on campus for all of your classes. And if it's not all, it would probably be most. So that could be something that's very difficult if you already are employed to get leave and things like that. In saying that, though, if your degree is related to your occupation or your career, you might be able to arrange with your employer study leave. And if it's not related to your career or what you're currently working as, maybe your employer might be a bit more flexible and allow you to work out some other arrangement in terms of your working hours versus your studying hours. But again, it's something that you'll probably have to figure out ahead of time, because you're going to have to commit to your study time 6 months at minimum in advance. Like, you'll select your subjects and then you'll start studying them rather than working it out as you go along in terms of the class time, whether it's semester or trimester. Okay, so I think that's a lot of the things that you can probably see on the slide now. I guess the other big factor is the amount of time that you can commit to actually doing the coursework or the, study for your degree. Um, the average sort of rule they say is that each subject requires about 12 hours of study per week. Um, Again, it's very subjective. You might be someone that's very time efficient and you can smash out like an assignment in a day, and that might not be 12 hours for the week. It might just be 12 hours for one day and you do like not much else. But it might be something that's very theory heavy and you're going to have to do lots and lots of stuff every day of that week. So, yeah, that's another thing to factor into your decision making. So, where can you get that sort of information from? Well, you can go through the UAC website because we are a bit of an information hub as well as the middleman in terms of getting into the degrees. So, on the UAC website, we have a course search tool. It's embedded into our home screen. You can filter by undergraduate, which is bachelor level study, and also postgraduate, which is, master's, graduate certificate, things like that. And you'll be able to find out a lot of information about the degrees that you're considering. Of course, the university websites themselves, but you'll probably have to go uni by uni and maybe have a few different tabs open in Google Chrome or whatever browser it is that you use. You'll find in the UAC course search a description of the degree and generally related occupations or careers to that degree. You'll also see on the page this LSR number stated, which is the lowest selection rank for that degree. However, just keep in mind that that's usually only ever used for year 12 students applying to those degrees. So it's not relevant for somebody who has, say, a TAFE qualification or who's 5 years out of year 12 or something like that, because when you're assessed, you'll be considered or what we term as a non-school leaver. So your selection rank can be very, very different depending on how many other non-school leavers have applied for that same course at the same time as you. Um, and if you wanted some more specific information about the degree itself, it's best to contact the university that offers that degree. Like I said, they all have specialized future students teams, and they'll be able to give you a lot more assistance and tailored advice, whether it's over the phone, email, or through chat or social media. Okay, so we've talked about where to find the information. Let's talk about, in general, what sort of stuff the unis would like you to see to get entry. So, for someone that we consider a non school leaver, so someone that's not a year 12 student, selection is in general based on your secondary, so your high school qualification, if you have one, or any former tertiary qualification, so that's university level studies. It doesn't necessarily have to be completed, as in a completed bachelor's degree. It could be that you started and did a year's worth of studies. Normally, it does need to be a full year's worth of study because the university has minimum what we call credit points. So a subject equals a certain amount of credit points, and the university normally likes to see a year's worth of credit points before they'll start beginning assessing your application. In some cases, though, they'll look at half a year, but for the most part, it'll be a full year. If you are over the age of 21, you can do a STAT test, and the STAT test has changed its name recently. It used to be called the Special Tertiary Admissions Test or something like that. But if you Google SAT Uni Entry Australia or something like that, you'll find the website. Or if you've done any preparation course similar to TAFE or something like that, and if you have employment experience, that can sometimes be assessed for entry, but in the most part, it's only if the employment relates to the field that you're applying for. So, say you've worked as an assistant in nursing and you're applying for a bachelor's of nursing to become a registered nurse, some universities will look at that employment experience and consider it as part of your application. Not all of them, though. It can change uni to uni. So, if you are someone who was not born in Australia, you might also be requested to do an English language test. So, just be aware of that. And like I said, some university courses will have additional selection criteria as well. So, that could be if it's something in the creative arts, an audition, portfolio of work. If it's in medicine, it'll be an additional like entrance test, like the UCAT. So just have a look online and know what you're going to be asked to do and provide. So, if you're someone that's already done a bachelor's and you're now thinking about doing postgraduate study, which is beyond bachelor's or bachelor's honors degrees, this is usually what universities will start assessing you, what you should have. So you'll need to have a completed undergraduate degree. They won't assess you with, only 2 years of a bachelor's degree and you haven't conferred and then graduated. Work experience, in some cases, some universities will look at you with work experience alone, but that's usually only for a Masters of Business Administration. And it's when we say work experience, it's very high level management experience. Um, if you hoping to get into the Juris Doctor. So that's a postgraduate course for becoming a lawyer or being eligible to be admitted as a solicitor. Um, you will need to do a qualification assessment as well. Sometimes universities will still look at your ATAR, even if you do have a completed bachelor's degree, in the case of a Juris Doctor for some places. And if you've started in postgraduate studies, like you've done 4 subjects of a master's, that counts as a graduate certificate, or 6, which counts as a graduate diploma, and you've completed those, they'll assess those completed certificates or diplomas or amount of subjects towards entrance into a master's degree. Okay. So, lots of people are curious to find out what their qualifications are worth. Most of the time, if you ask this question to a university, they will say that we can't give you an answer without fully assessing a submitted application. But we can give you sort of a half answer if you're curious. So, when you apply through UAC, you aren't told, oh, your qualification is worth X ATAR. So if you don't have an ATAR or maybe you got a UAI or something like that, you're not going to be given a new ATAR result. We basically convert your current qualifications into a number used for entry, and we call that a selection rank. It acts like an ATAR, but you won't be given an ATAR because you haven't finished year 12 like recently when they began using ATARs. So it's not only redundant to give you an ATAR, but it's kind of pointless because you don't need one. You've got qualifications for us to assess you with, and that's why we just convert that into an ATAR-like number for entry. So only HSC students receive an ATAR, and we will just look at your stuff, use it like an ATAR. If you have some qualifications from TAFE and they're competency based, they sort of have a standard selection rank that we can use. So if you've got a Cert 3, that converts to a selection rank of a 67. If you've got a Cert 4, converts to a 73. If you've got a diploma, it converts to a 75. An advanced diploma converts to a 76. However, if your competency, well, your Cert 3, Cert 4 diploma, advanced diploma was a graded qualification and not just pass, fail, or competency based, those numbers could be higher depending on your grades. So just keep that in mind. Applying for a place in a university degree through UAC, we won't tell you what your selection rank is. We'll just tell you if you've gotten into the thing that you applied for. However, if you want to know what your selection rank could be, we do have a service for that. It's called the Qualifications Assessment Service. But using that doesn't mean that you're going to get into a degree. So you'll find out what your number could be, but you'll need to apply separately to get entrance into the degrees you're interested in. Okay, moving on. Lots of people ask us when they're, returning to study, or maybe they've done study in the past, or maybe they've done a lot of work experience that relates to the field that they're hoping to get entry into a degree for, if they can get credit. So again, UAC is the middleman that is just facilitating the becoming a student at a place or getting into X degree at the University of B. So we assess your suitability for course entry or degree entry, but a lot of the time we don't do anything much more than that. So yes, it's possible to receive credit. Sometimes people know this as advanced standing. So it's now called credit for prior learning. And yeah, it's possible to get credit. However, we are not the entity that you receive the credit from. So use UAC to get your entry into the degree, get a student number, and then during the process of becoming a student for that degree at that place, you will approach the faculty that you're studying with to get your credit. So it's a separate process and it comes after getting your spot in the degree. So each university has different rules around granting credit and how much credit they'll grant and what they recognize for credit. So it's really hard for us to give you a, you know, answer because all of the different circumstances around it makes it a bit hard to predict. So again, you'll have to do a bit of research around it. And I think for the most part, lots of universities don't grant more than 50% of the duration of the degree time in credit. So say you want to get into a bachelor's, that's 3 years of study. It'd be uncommon for you to get 18 months of study credited towards your graduation. So I could be wrong. You'd have to research it because each university is different. All right. Moving along, if you are someone who has a qualification that you've gained from overseas, but now you're living in Australia and you'd like to go to onshore in Australia, another tertiary institution, um, you can use your international qualifications in some cases. So, not every single university will accept every single international qualification. Um, but again, a lot of the time they'll have to cite what the qualification is and assess it before they can determine whether they will accept it. So, if you ask them, I've got this from this country, can I use it to get entry? They might not give you the answer that you're hoping for. They'll just ask you to apply and then they'll say they'll let you know. So, again, if you haven't been instructed in the English language or you were born in a country where the English language wasn't the national language, you might be requested to do an English language test. Especially for health-based courses. A lot of the time, the English language requirement is set by the health regulator, not the university itself. So you might be able to demonstrate that you have a really high level of English competency because you've been a resident of Australia for a substantial amount of time, but the university is still required to request that English proficiency test because of sort of, rules around you getting registered in that health sector. Because without it, you won't be able to work, even if you graduate and have your bachelor's of, I don't know, occupational therapy, for example. If your international qualification documentation is written in a language other than English, a lot of the universities will ask you to supply copies of the original in that language other than English, and then also a translated copy by a native translator. which has all sort of been um, stamped and signed and things like that. Lots of the unis will have the requirements around documentation and what's accepted on their websites. So just check you're following their rules when you're supplying it, and they'll have that information on their websites. Okay. So hopefully that sort of demystifies what unis like to see, what you might be requested of when applying. And yeah, it's a good idea to sort of do a little bit of research so you know what you're up for before applying, because you'll be asked for it eventually. But if you are somebody that prefers to have these conversations in person, we are running an event in September, which isn't too far away now. So there'll be 16 university and tertiary education providers all in the one place, which is at Dalton House in Sydney, which is on Elizabeth Street. It's on Thursday, the 12th of September. It's between 4 and 7:30 p.m. It's a free event, so there's no money that we're asking for visitors to give, and it's catered, so there'll be drinks and some food. And yeah, I guess the benefit is that there's lots of different universities in the one building. So if you did have questions, please come along. Feel free to have a chat with all the different providers, and you might be able to get some really good advice. And bit of a efficient way of sort of finding out your answers. So there's a QR code on the screen, and that will take you to register for the event, but it is free. So we won't be asking for any credit card details or anything like that. The event is also on Facebook. And if you are somebody that sort of likes to get information a bit more fast paced, we have a Facebook group set up as well. So you can definitely inquire about any study pathways or anything like that ahead of time. And yeah, if you're just curious about an occupation or a sector and you're not sure what sort of qualifications might be involved, we're definitely happy to have a chat, do a bit of research, and let you know what's out there. So that's all career moves sort of stuff. And the QR code on the page is just to register for the in person event. Okay. So we've talked about qualifications and entry requirements and how to research. This is when you should be sort of considering actually submitting your application. So this is our key dates for undergraduate degrees. And remember, undergraduate degrees are for bachelor's, diplomas, undergraduate certificates, things like that. So the application system for those courses opened in April, on the 3rd of April. Coming up on the 16th of September, that's when applications that begin for courses that begin in semester 2 close. So if you're hoping to start mid-year, we encourage you to get your application in as soon as possible because that will close on the 16th of September. On the 30th of September, that's when what we call early bird applications close. If you've looked on university websites, you might have heard the term early entry. Early entry is normally just used for year 12 students or someone in high school applying for university. So it's less relevant for somebody that's already finished high school or is done with high school. Early bird has to do with the price you pay for your UAC application. So an early bird application has a fee of $80, but after the 30th of September, that fee will increase to the standard price, which is $215. So if you're hoping to save a bit in terms of your application cost, definitely apply before the 30th of September. And if you don't want to start until next year, from the time that you pay, your application is active or remains valid until March next year. So if you're not someone that's keen on starting this year, it doesn't matter. You can keep using your application and you can apply to different start dates for different degrees. So change of preference is the 18th of December for offers that are released in the 23rd of December. And that's a big offer round. Then we have one in January. So you need to set your preferences or be happy with them by the 2nd of January for offers released on the 9th of January. And there's 4 more offer rounds following the 9th of January, and that is all the way into March. Okay, so for postgraduate study, and that's again, master's, graduate certificate, degrees like that, the dates are less prescribed. The application system opens on the 4th of September. There's 2 closing dates. You'll see if you're looking at courses in the postgraduate course search, there's a date called main closing, and this is a date, and it can be different for different degrees. This date is that some universities can make offers like onwards from the dates stated. We call that progressively, and it might not be all unis, it might just be some. And then we have the final closing date. So this is the last date to apply for that degree for entry. Sometimes you'll look at those 2 dates and they'll be the exact same date. So the main closing is the final closing, but that's the difference between the 2. Main closing is sort of like a pre-closing, and then the final is the very firm final closing date, like a soft close and then a hard close. Okay, so this is your how to apply instructions. In general, it's all online. So you'll just go to the UAC website, follow the links to apply, and you will register to create an account or an application. When you make your application, you'll receive a UAC number and your personal identification number, so a PIN, kind of like a password. So once you've started the apply steps, you'll get those sent to you. And you will also need a unique student identifier number to submit or like finish submitting your application. But think of it as more like an account because you can log back into it once you've made it and paid for it. So it's more like a profile for uni or an account. If you don't have a USI, you can go onto the USI website and put in like your birth date and a phone number or an email, and it will tell you if you already have an existing one. And if you don't, you just fill out the form and you get one. It's kind of like tax file number. It just tracks like all of the learning stuff you've done in your lifetime. So it's good to have, and you definitely need it to hit submit. All right. So we have a quick video now that just takes you through all of those steps a bit better than what I have. So enjoy.
If you finish school before 2024, here's how you apply for uni through UAC. To get started, head to the UAC website, uac.edu.au. Click the Apply or Login button and select Undergraduate Application from the drop-down menu. Read the information on the start page. Take particular note of the application fee. Click the Start Your Application button. Register your application by entering your personal email address and a password. You'll be emailed a link to verify your email address. Once that's done, go back to the application start page and log in using your registered email address and password. Select your citizenship and tell us that you're not a Year 12 student. Click Continue to move to the Personal Details page. Enter all the details requested, including your government-issued unique student identifier. You need it to enroll and get a help loan. There's a link to apply for a USI if you don't already have one. On this page, you can also authorize a friend or relative to act on your behalf. And you can list any disabilities or illnesses you might need support with at uni. When you click Next, your UAC application number will be displayed. We'll also send you an email with a record of your application number. You'll need it to contact us about your application. Click Continue to move through to the Qualifications page. This is where you add your relevant qualifications, like previous and current study and work experience. Use the help icons if you're unsure about where to enter your qualification. Click Submit to save the qualifications And when you're done, click Next to continue. The course preferences page is where you choose the courses you'd like to apply for. You can include up to 5 courses. If you're not sure about the courses you've chosen, don't worry. You can always change them later. Click Search for courses to get started. First, select the institutions you're interested in, or select all. The courses available at those institutions will be displayed. To refine the search results, you can enter the 6-digit course code from the UAC website Course Search, or you can enter a course name or campus. To add a course to your preference list, select the start date. Place your courses in order of preference. First on your list should be the course you'd most like to do, followed by your second, third, fourth, and fifth choices. The order is important because if you miss out on getting an offer to your first choice, you'll be considered for your second one, and so on. When you're done, save your changes to continue. Now you need to review your application. Check your details carefully and click the pencil icon next to any part of the summary to go back and make more changes. Once you're happy, click the Submit button. Read through the declaration and tick the box to agree with its terms and accept that the application fee is not refundable. Now it's time to make your payment. You can use a credit card or a PayPal account. Once you pay, your application is complete. It's a good idea to download and save your confirmation of application for your records. If you've experienced educational or financial challenges, you can follow the links to information about the Educational Access Scheme and equity scholarships to see if you're eligible to apply. You can log back into your application at any time between 7:30 a.m. and midnight to upload documents, change your course preferences, track your application, change your password, and check your offers. If you have any questions about your application, call our customer service team or use our online inquiry form.
Okay, so that's how to apply. And in general, once you've submitted your application, you will be asked, you won't be asked because we can retrieve your academic or your study records. If you've done any study at an Australian high school, if it's year 12 qualifications, at TAFE in New South Wales only, and any public university in Australia. If you're not sure if you've done study at a public university in Australia, you can contact UAC and we'll let you know. If you have done any studies and it's been a private college or TAFE outside of New South Wales, or maybe it's been like an industry certificate or something like that that you need for the field of work that you've been doing, or if it's employment experience, that is something that UAC can't retrieve from other agencies. So you'll need to upload it within your application so we can see it and assess it. And in terms of employment experience, we do need a statement of service. So that has specific requirements in terms of the formatting, and it's not necessarily a resume or a CV document. It will have other sort of bits of information on it. And we have information on the UAC website that details what a statement of service is if you're uncertain about that. Okay, so moving on, we have things that you can add into your UAC application or your UAC account after you've applied for entry into the degree. And remember, you can change your mind about what that degree is after you've paid the application processing fee. So, one of those is called the Educational Access Scheme. And this is for anyone that's applying for study that experienced anything that was challenging or a disadvantage during the time that they were studying the thing that they're now relying upon for entry into the course that they're using UAC to assess for. So, say you're at university and some circumstances happened, it impacted your grades at the end of the year. Um, the Educational Access Scheme is a way that we can assess those circumstances. And what it does is it might increase that final number that we call the selection rank. So, what your transcript of subjects in the first degree that you attempted converts to. So you'll have to state in the EAS section of your uni application what category or what reason you're applying for. There's lots of them. And then you'll need to supply us with some supporting documentation so we can assess the impact that that event had on your educational performance. So you don't have to have the documentation when you're first applying for the reason. You can just apply for the reason and then we'll tell you what we need to complete the assessment. There's lots of different types of standard documents that are stated on our website. But if you apply for the reason, we'll give you like a list of exactly what we'd like to see to complete our assessment. If for whatever reason you can't provide every single thing on that list, it's not going to prevent us from attempting the assessment, and it won't negatively impact your university entry outcome. Worst case scenario, we'll just say that we can't give you any extra points and your assessment under EAS is 0, but it's not going to take points away. I hope that makes sense. If there's any questions, just send us a message and we'll explain further. So, unfortunately, it's not a guarantee of entry into every university or course/degree on offer, but it might be a helping hand if you've experienced an educational challenge in your lifetime. So, or when I say lifetime, the time when you were obtaining the qualification that you're now using for entry into the new application. So EAS is not considered by some universities where you've previously started in a university course or degree. And those universities are the Australian National University, Charles Sturt University, the University of New England, the University of Sydney, the University of Wollongong, UNSW Sydney, and Western Sydney University. So I hope the information of those people are on the screen. Another thing that you might be interested in adding into your UAC application is an equity scholarship. So this is financial assistance while you're at university. A lot of these scholarships are partly government funded and not all universities offer them. On the most part, they're awarded to applicants who demonstrate that they're in the most financial need at the time. So again, you can add it into your UAC application or account. And most people that are awarded the scholarship are awarded in terms of financial challenge or disadvantage. So they would have a Centrelink CRN number to provide us. There are other categories, such as if you're a young carer or things like that, and we would request supporting documentation to assess for that as well. If you miss out on the scholarship when you first apply, it is something that you can continuously apply to when you're going throughout your degree or studies at a university. So in saying that, universities have a lot more scholarships that they offer on their own website. So if you're interested in a scholarship, it might be worthwhile looking at what the universities offer themselves. Okay, so while we're talking about money, it's sort of a good idea to just outline what sort of support in terms of government assistance is available in Australia. So the HEX Help loan system is talked about a lot in the media, and HEX in general is sort of the shorthand way of referring to people's debt when they graduate university. So there's a few different moving parts for this. When you are studying at university, there is something known as a Commonwealth supported place. So this is a government subsidy, and mostly they're awarded to people that are studying bachelor level courses. So this is up to 75% of the cost of the course. The government is covering that amount of money, and it's a subsidy. So you don't need to pay it back. It's sort of like a government discount code, but it's mostly available for bachelor level degrees. Then the part that's remaining, that is called your student contribution amount. So that's the remaining amount of fees which you need to repay, but most people opt to defer repayment onto a help loan. So in the circumstance of university study, it's HEX help. And that's why most people will talk about their HEX debt. So you don't start paying it back until you earn over a certain amount in a tax year. And you can find out a lot more information about that on Study Assist, which is the government's website about all things uni, tuition, debt. So there's also something called a student learning entitlement, SLE, which you should be made aware of. Keep in mind that the federal government determines all of these rules, and they can change from year to year. But at the moment, there is something known as a student learning entitlement. So this is the total amount of time that somebody can occupy a Commonwealth supported place. So it's currently 7 years. So say it took you, and that's full-time study, so 14 years for part-time. Say you are in a Commonwealth supported place and it's 8 years and you have not yet graduated from your bachelor level course. That means that 8th year, that 1 year, you will not have your Commonwealth supported place government discount subsidy, and you will have to pay 100% of the course costs for that year. So keep that in mind if you think it'll take you a bit more time than usual to graduate. So who can get these things? Again, all this information is on the government's website, Study Assist. So if you'd like to see if you're eligible, you can fill out a form there and it will tell you. But the main requirements are citizenship, residency, and course. So Australian citizens studying at least 1 unit in Australia, New Zealand citizens, permanent residents, permanent humanitarian visa holders, and Pacific engagement visa holders who are all living and studying in Australia are entitled to a CSP and a help loan, a HEX help loan. But the degree has to meet the requirements for a CSP, and you have to be obviously offered a CSP place. So that information would be in your letter of offer if you're enrolling at a university. And if you're not sure, you can ask the university for more information. They even have pamphlets that they give you. So some more things about study and financial assistance, study costs and financial assistance is that, again, the CSP is a subsidised place that the Australian government or, the uni is, they're paying for the fees, essentially, part of the fees. You don't need to repay back that part, but it's mostly for bachelor degrees. Post-grad courses, some have CSP places, usually in health and IT and some industries like that, but not all of them have CSP places. And there is a help loan system dedicated for that, but obviously you'd be putting a lot more onto your help debt. So keep that in mind. And you don't start paying back your student contribution costs if you have a help loan until you're earning over a certain amount in a tax year. And it's sort of like a second tax. They take it out of your pay as you go, and then you repay it at the end of the tax year. But keep in mind that the government does index your debt on the system. So it's not an interest fee, it's an indexation rate. At the moment, it's tied to the consumer price index. It is only indexed once a year. It's not like, a mortgage or credit card interest where they index, like they charge it monthly, but it will not stay exactly at the price that you began at. Yeah. Then these are the student contribution amounts. So they're divided by funding clusters, and basically it's just categorized by field of study. Medicine, dentistry, vet science, they're some of the more expensive degrees, and then you've got more of the affordable degrees, and that's like things like education, English, statistics, nursing. So again, you can find all this information on the Study Assist website. Okay, so postgrad fees, I touched on this earlier, but it's not guaranteed that you'll get a Commonwealth supported place. That means that you'll be paying the full cost of the course without any government help. But you can defer the payment, so when you start paying it back, onto a fee help loan. So not HEX help, fee help. But obviously, the amount of debt that you end up will be substantially larger than your bachelor's degree. And if you haven't yet paid off your bachelor's degree, then you're going to have lots of debt to pay off. Also, you'll find the costs of the course on the uni website, or you can find the link to it through UAC's course search and a lot more information there. And yeah, the types of degrees that do have Commonwealth supported places are like teaching, health, any sort of field which we need people to work in may have a CSP place. Okay, so I mentioned just before that you can change the degree that you're applying to with your UAC application. Think of it like an account. So you get 5 preferences in an undergraduate UAC application. And it's sort of like a university wish list. So number 1 is the degree that you want the most. Number 5 is maybe your backup plan. The order, we will go down the order that you've created. So we'll start at number 1. If we can give you that, you'll get that. If you miss out on one, then we'll look at what's beneath it in the list. So each uni degree and uni name and location of that uni is one preference. So that has a course code. If you're looking on the course search, that will take up one place in your list. And you've got 5 to fill. So if you change your mind, you just log into your application and update your list, because we will only begin assessing it on the set date where your preference list closes. And then 7 days later, the offer will come out from that assessment round. So if you want to change your preferences but you don't know how, I think we've got a video coming up in a few slides. So the offers work like this. You've got to meet the entry requirements and be competitive to receive an offer. You'll get one unconditional offer at one time. So one of your 5 things at once you might get from your list. But we have to have all the information to determine that before the offer date. So on our website, you'll see that there's a date to apply, then there's a date to get all your documents to us. There's a date to, set your preferences by, rearrange them. And then the final date is the offer date. So you've got to make sure that you've done the application, paid the fee, given us all of your information, checked that you're happy with the order of your preference list, and then 7 days later, the offer will come out. But we don't start assessing your application until we've closed off the preference list, which is 7 days before those offers come out. But if you miss out on something in one offer round, you can just try again in the following offer round. So each offer round represents an opportunity for you to have a whole new list of 5 choices, a whole new wish list. And you can just keep logging back in and updating your list and just waiting the 7 days and seeing what you get. However, if you're going for like the mid-semester start date, you want to start in the middle of the year, sometimes not every single university offers a mid-year start date for all of their degrees. Teaching, nursing, they only start at the start of the year. And some unis, they just like to start making offers in December, because that's when they've received like all of the results from all of the people, whether you're finishing, the second semester of the uni for that year, or year 12 students have finished and they can see what the ATAR result is as well. So if you are interested in finding out the dates, they're on our website, key dates page, and you can find them there. If you're someone that has TAFE results and you're outside of New South Wales, you'll have to provide them to us. You'll have to give us the transcript. If you're in New South Wales, usually they're released in early January, and that's when we can go in and grab your transcript out of the system that we use to share information. So that might mean that we can only make offers after that we've received that. So you might miss out on the December round. Okay. Postgraduate, I've sort of already explained earlier on, there's not really a specific date. Some unis will have a soft close and then they might start offering things to people after their soft close. Some unis just have the same date as their soft close and the firm close, and they won't start offering anybody anything until after that firm close date has passed. It really just depends on what the degree is that you're hoping to get into and what the university is. And again, you just have to make sure you're happy with your wish list in your application or your account, however you think of it, before the close of preference for that offer round. And of course, you need to make sure that we've assessed your qualifications. So that's why we have those dates where we say apply by this date, give us any requested information by this date, make sure you're happy with your preference list, and then we will start assessing. So I hope that sheds some light on the process. But if you don't know how to change your preferences in the UAC system, we have a very, very brief video that we'll show for you now.
You can change your course preferences in your UAC application as many times as you like. But be aware that there are a few days between each offer round when your preferences will be locked. If you log in at these times, there will be a notification telling you when you'll be able to edit them again. To start, log in using your registered email address and password. Select the Course Preferences tab. Now you can see your preference list. To change the order of your preferences, click on the up or down arrow below the course you want to move until the course is in the correct position. Or select the icon on the left-hand side of the screen and drag the course to the correct position. After you've made your changes, click the Update button and then the Save and Check button. To remove a course, click the X icon to the right of the course name. Confirm that you want to remove the course, then click Update and Save and Check. To add a new course preference, select Search for Courses, then the Select Institutions drop-down. Select specific universities or colleges to search for their courses or select all. Close the dialog box. Search for courses by entering any of the following: course name, course code, or a keyword. Relevant courses will be displayed. Select one or more courses by clicking on the start dates. Some courses have more than one start date, so take care to choose the correct one. Click on Review Your Preferences. Once you have reviewed your preference list and made any changes to the order, click Update and then Save and Check. If you have any questions about your application, call our customer service team or use our online inquiry form.
Okay, so hopefully that was helpful for people that haven't really seen the inside of a UAC application, where to click, which buttons to go to. But if there was any questions out there for anyone that's still watching, now is your opportunity to ask them and hopefully be able to give you a bit more insight on applications for those of you who are beginning study after high school, if you haven't yet started at a university, or maybe you did go to uni and you're deciding to return to university study. So if there was anyone out there with a burning question, please let us know. If not, feel free to put it in a comment on the platform that you're viewing this video, and we'll definitely answer in a reply. I know it's a lot of detailed information, but unfortunately, there's not one set process to assess these types of applications. And a lot of the time, you might get different sets of information from different universities or tertiary providers. And that's because everybody sort of just does their own thing. Um, I guess the benefit of applying through UAC is you provide all the information once, you do the applying once, and you just leave it with us, and we'll tell you what you've gotten into. But um, yeah, if there's anything that you need assistance with and you want a question answered before you apply, we have a really good customer service team. You can submit an inquiry form on our website, give us a phone call, or send an email to anyone. We're definitely interested in answering your questions and helping you out. Okay, so thanks for your attention tonight. And yeah, ask the questions, we'll get back to you.